antioxidant product this is the highest antioxidant product we have in the Enriching Gifts product line as a singular standalone antioxidant. And this has tremendous antioxidant properties to it. In fact, if you haven't heard of the ORAC, O-R-A-C, oxidative reduction scale measuring methodology, astaxanthin, which is the active ingredient within red algae, is the highest, meaning it scores the absolute best at an antioxidant at reducing oxidation. So let me say that again. Astaxanthin, which is the active ingredient in our heart algae product, scores the highest on the ORAC scale at reducing oxidation, better than any other product ever tested. Okay, so that's first and foremost. Then I want to get into just a little bit about the benefits of an antioxidant. What is oxidation? What does it do? How can it be beneficial as well as bad for the human body or any other living creature that has a digestive tract or a beating heart? So what an antioxidant does is it's a very, and different antioxidants like pine bark, grapeseed, Q-enzyme, Q10, there's a lot of different antioxidant sources. And what an antioxidant is, it is a substance with a very large electron molecular ring, meaning it has anywhere between 2 and as high as 28, 30 electrons on its molecular ring. And the more electrons you have on the ring, the more beneficial that antioxidant is going to be at reducing oxidation or the damaging effects of oxygen. Nothing is more damaging to the human body, and yet nothing is more critical to the human body than oxygen. But when you use an oxygen molecule, you'll split the molecule into an unevenly paired electron. And why is oxygen so damaging? Because oxygen is an O2 molecule, meaning it only has 2 electrons. So when it misses one, that's going to be aggressively damaging, trying to find that other electron to pair itself. And that's what an antioxidant does. It freely gives off an electron from its molecule so that it can pair the free radical molecule or the oxidative damaging molecule. And that's how antioxidants work. So the larger the electron ring, the more electrons it has, the easier it is to give one away. And if you think about this in just kind of a basic scientific terms, if you have a molecule that only has 2 electrons and it's missing 1, that's 50% of itself that's missing. So it's going to be very aggressive and damaging. Then you have like a astaxanthin where there's 28 to 32, depending on what kind of algae you're getting, molecules or electrons, if you will, on that molecular nutrient. When it gives 1 away, now you got 27. It's not even going to notice that it's even gone. So yes, now it becomes a free radical itself. All antioxidants, when they give off an electron and they're unevenly paired, they're going to become a free radical themselves. But they're not nearly as damaging as the oxygen and some of those smaller electron rings we have 4 and 6. So we're limiting and significantly reducing the amount of damage from an antioxidant once it gives that electron away and it's unevenly paired. Now that antioxidant becomes an oxidant or a free radical damaging cell. Okay, so that's just a fundamental understanding about antioxidants. Now let's talk about specifically astaxanthin and the red algae compared to other algae sources, other antioxidant nutrients such as vitamin C, such as coenzyme Q10, such as grapeseed extract, such as white pine bark extract. And these substances are up to the 16 to 24 molecule antioxidants. So, but what the difference, I guess I'll go back and explain the kind of industry, if you will, or the category that we're actually in, which is an algae family. Whether it's red algae, green algae, dulse, it doesn't matter. They're all real high in antioxidant value. But nothing is higher than astaxanthin from red algae specifically. Nothing is higher. There is no better antioxidant. Not grapes and red grapes or Concord grapes. They're not even close. So now that brings me to my next point. So we got this far superior antioxidant as far as from a red algae source. So how do we compare with the other companies out in the nutritional industry worldwide as far as our quality versus their quality? Well, I was talking to Elna Timms tonight a little bit earlier, trying to explain some of the basic differences. And this is where everyone that distributes this product, especially takes this product for their own benefit, needs to understand. There is no better algae anywhere or antioxidant than a red algae anywhere on the planet Earth. There is nothing that's going to come close to a red algae source from astaxanthin and an antioxidant perspective. So how does Enriching Gifts heart algae stack up against the rest of the world? Well, everybody knows me. I'm committed to absolutely having the highest and the best quality and the most potent quality that there is in any supplement in any store on anywhere on this planet. And here's exactly why I can say that with really, really high confidence. One, a lot of people don't know this, so I'm glad we're doing this call. The technology that we have to grow and then process our algae is worldwide patented. It's called photoreactor biodome. And that's just like it sounds. It reacts to light, photoreactive, and it's a biodome. It's a big, huge glass ball. It's 5 feet tall, 5 feet around. It's like a big, huge, overinflated basketball. And they sit on pods. They're 1 foot off of the surface of the earth. They sit on these little round pods, if you will, and that's what keeps them in place. Then you have 4 tubes that go right through the middle of it. There's a top, a bottom, and then there's that largest outer circumference, which we call the middle. And there's tubes that run from each photoreactor biodome into another, and there's 2,500 photoreactor biodomes in a valley. And they're over in Hawaii. And why did we pick Hawaii? Well, first of all, what people may or may not know about me, you know, you heard Kevin Trudeau and Bob Barefoot talk for all those years, several years ago, about coral calcium. Well, what people don't realize is I brought coral calcium from Okinawa, Japan, to the United States market. The only reason Kevin Trudeau and Bob Barefoot ever got a hold of coral calcium was because of Ron Schneider and Fred Kaufman. We brought that product to the United States market. We were the very first to have it. We had the exclusive, and we still do. And that's going to get into Coral Life, and I'll tell you about that story later on. But what's really important to understand is I'm not only the first to bring coral calcium in the United States, I'm the only person that has astaxanthin from the photoreactor biodome technology in the United States. No other company has this. You can have red algae, but you're not going to have the red algae we have. And it's dramatically different as far as our quality of what we have versus any other astaxanthin product anywhere in the U.S. Nobody else has this because they don't have the technology. So here's what I want to get into is the photoreactor biodomes. I brought the photoreactor biodome technology from Japan when I was over there working with the royal family to Honolulu, Hawaii, and that was in 1997. And that's why I moved to Hawaii to actually carry out and fundamentally develop this whole technology over in the island of Maui. And I was really good friends with Bill Akiono, who was at that time the head of the Hawaiian Economic Development Division. And so I worked with him in bringing this company to Hawaii. Now, why did we pick Hawaii? Because when I was over there, they were looking for a country where the temperature would never fluctuated more than 10, 15 degrees. And it couldn't do that because it would turn the glass black. And if it was too hot, the glass would black all the time. So you never could really develop the product from a nutritional perspective, or more importantly, the fiber wall was never, ever formed. And fiber wall definitely has a place. It holds the nutritional value in place of the algae source itself. So I brought that company over to Hawaii because if anybody knows Hawaii, Hawaii never fluctuates more than 20 degrees from the high of the day to the low of the night. It very rarely will fluctuate more than 20 degrees year-round. It's usually about 72 to 75, up to about 85, 90. And right there is the highs and the lows throughout the whole year. You're very seldom, now the humidity will change in Hawaii. In the summertime, it gets really humid, so it feels hotter, but it's really not. It's about 92, 90 degrees. And like I said, the lows at night get down in the 75s. And that's kind of why we brought it to Hawaii, and it worked beautifully. Because what happens is all you have to do is heat up the water. See, all these photoreactor biodomes are all filled plumb full of water. And then you slowly pump in the algae. And that's young algae. So you're literally growing them in these domes. And then you go through the harvest season where you literally pull out all the algae from all 2,500 domes, and then you process that. And here's where we really have a huge difference than any other algae product in the world. All other algae, it doesn't matter what country it comes from, doesn't matter where it is, or what kind of algae it is, whether it's a green algae, a blue-green algae like Celtec, the network marketing company, astaxanthin, a red algae, whether it's Hawaiian red or cyanotech or aquasearch, it doesn't matter. Though all other algae are grown in an open pond environment or open water environment like the oceans for Hawaiian red out of Honolulu, Hawaii. That poses a huge problem, multiple problems. One, there's no way to keep it sterile, keep the bad bacteria, keep the fecal matter from animals, keep the acid rain and the air pollutions from raining down and become part of that pond solution that actually is going to be absorbed as that algae source grows. In Klamath Lake, blue-green algae, that Celtec almost went out of business because they discovered a parasitic bacteria in Klamath Lake, where all the blue-green algae are harvested from. And that was actually causing brain damage to people. And now they have to sterilize it. So now you get a algae out of the Klamath Lake or any other of these open pond environments. They go through a steam sterilization. Now, what do we know about steam? Steam can damage a lot of nutrients as well as beneficial properties of any food source, too high a temperature. And so every single company out there other than ours has to go through these processes to make the food quality safe, and it's going to deteriorate the effectiveness of it. And every single company out there with open pond water is going to go through this process. And Celtec even went one further. They used to have the Omega and the Alpha Sun product. And it was the Alpha Sun that was actually the higher concentration of the algae because they removed the cell wall. So they got rid of the fiber wall, which made a much more denser actual algae or astaxanthin property ingredient. Problem was that was about 3 times more expensive than the regular algae with the fiber wall intact. And here's the beautiful thing about our technology. I'll go back to the photoreactor diodomes. Why do we pick Hawaii? Because it has a temperature. We don't want the water to get too hot and shield out the sunlight. So what we're able to do is literally take samples, and there's a little cap, a sealed little cap at the top of each photoreactor biodome. You simply open that up, grab some algae as a sample, and then go in the lab and analyze it. And we know exactly when to turn the glass black, because we want to have an intact fiber wall, but we don't want it to develop. We just want it to be a very thin shell layer to hold the nutritional value and the astaxanthin properties of that red algae source. Because when you turn the glass black, the fiber stops developing, but the nutritional density does not. So when you end up with the product that we harvest, we don't have a fiber wall that we have to remove. We have the most nutrient-dense gram for gram of any other algae source in the world by a minimum of 5 times over. We have 5 times more nutritional astaxanthin benefit and grams per kilo than any other company in the world times 5. That's why Hard Algae, that's why Enriching Gifts is such a different company in the nutritional field of antioxidants from an algae source. Nobody comes close. We don't have the sterilization. We don't have the fiber wall removal process. We don't have any of that. What you end up with when you have a finished product that you harvest, all we simply do is encapsulate it and dehydrate it. There is no processes other than that. We don't have to steam it. It's completely sterile in its enclosed environment. We put factors that increase the nutritional value. And that's the other thing we can do. We can concentrate or we can take away specific nutrients in the water that's fed into there. We don't have any toxic metals. It's pure spring water. And what's in the spring water that might have to be removed, we very easily can remove that. So we have 100% of what we want in there and nothing else. Nothing else. And if we need to add more iron, if we need to add more nutrients or minerals of any particular kind, we can do that. And what it does, it produces the absolute highest antioxidant astaxanthin product from any algae source anywhere in the world. And that's what Enriching Gifts has. And like I said, we can go and measure our antioxidant value on the ORAC scale to any other antioxidant. It doesn't even have to be from an algae, by the way. It could be citrus bioflavonoids, could be grapes, OPCs, white pine barks. Nothing is as high as astaxanthin. Nothing. Nothing. The only downfall to that is it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. So if you have brain cancer or you have some kind of a plaque buildup and it's creating an oxidation problem to the fine little veins and arteries that go through the brain, then you got a problem. And so that's why we have the pine bark in the metabolic complete product. So I'm going to make a distinction. Anybody that has like a cancer type condition would definitely benefit more from the metabolic complete. Anybody that has a heart issue in their genetics, like heart disease, strokes, high cholesterol and plaque levels, because again, plaque cannot accumulate in the human body until it oxidizes. And oxidize, when I say the word oxidizing, think of it as hardening from a liquid to a solid, because that's what oxidation usually does. And you get enough oxidation, it hardens hard enough where it starts to crack, and then the substance itself starts to break down and deteriorate, such as the artery wall. It's called arteriosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries. That's a major problem in heart disease people. And I'm one of those heart disease statistics. So what happens is when you take an antioxidant, it prevents that hardening of any kind of a substance, whether it be LDL cholesterol, whether it be oxidative free radicals. It prevents that oxidation from occurring. And so there's a reason why we have it named heart algae, because anyone with heart disease or hypertension, high blood pressure, or history of plaque buildup, which is always associated with heart disease, but it doesn't always have to be. You want to have the heart algae as your choice, because that's the best and the highest value antioxidant that we have from a single source in the Enriching Gifts product line. And so when it comes to your heart disease and plaque, let's start with plaque, and then I'll get into the arteriosclerosis and explain how an antioxidant is beneficial for hardening of the arteries and things like that. So plaque is mainly made up of mostly LDL, your fast oxidizing cholesterol, because of its low density. LDL is low density lipoproteins or fats. Lipoprotein and fat the same. And HDL is high density. That's why it's good, because it's got such high density, it never oxidizes through the membrane or the solution itself. And it just can't. It's too dense. It won't oxidize or harden at all. So the key to preventing plaque buildup is twofold. Increase a natural fat that has a non-oxidizing potential to it, and then use a really good antioxidant to slow down and prevent the oxidation of a oxidizing fat, whether it's fast or slow. LDL is a very fast oxidizing fat source. So if you take antioxidants you're going to slow that whole process way down. And then you throw in some non-oxidizing HDL cholesterol that will never, ever oxidize. Therefore, you prevented the formation of plaque. Plaque is nothing more than the hardened form of LDL cholesterol, denatured fats from your diet. That's what I was trying to think of earlier, Elna, was the denatured fats from your diet. Plaque is mainly 5 substances. First and foremost, you have about 70% made up of LDL cholesterol. Then you actually have the denatured fats, the cooking oils that you use to cook and prepare your foods. Then you have the platelets, which are the natural clotting mechanism of the blood. Then you have poorly digested proteins. And then you have this L form or a simple form of bacteria. And that's basically what plaque is made up of. And once in a while, you'll also get uric acid that comes from a slimy green solution into a solid green crystal. And again, that can't be converted from a slimy green solution into a hardened crystal unless you go through the oxidation process. So you're actually slowing down the formation of uric acid, which is the underlying cause of gout, gouty arthritis, and inflammatory joint disease, which typically happens in the ankles or the extremities of the joints. But gout is always in the big toes of your feet. That's along the bottom of your foot where you get walking on needles all the time. But typically it's found in the big toes, and they just blow up. I call it a Fred Flintstone toe. They get big, they get purple, and they hurt like the dickens. And that's uric acid buildup. And again, uric acid is just a natural byproduct of all protein digestion in the human body, whether it's vegetarian or whether it's animal flesh. It doesn't matter. The leftover byproduct when protein digestion is done is uric acid purine. It's a slimy, greenish substance that has a high oxidation potential to it. Not as high as LDL cholesterol, but if left in the body longer than 12 hours, it will start to solidify into a full crystal. And let me correct that, left in the body 10 hours or longer. And within 12 hours, it'll actually start reflecting light, the uric acid. So that's the benefit of an antioxidant when it comes to plaque buildup. And you've seen all these statin drugs reduce your LDL cholesterol with a statin drug. Statin drugs lower your coenzyme Q10 levels. Statin drugs, as far as I'm concerned, can all be thrown in the garbage can, just being frank with you. I'd much rather prevent that whole process and building up of the plaque and the LDL cholesterol. And that's, by the way, that's why you take a statin drug, to reduce your LDL cholesterol numbers. Because with reduced or less LDL cholesterol, you've minimized the potential for plaque to build up, causing heart disease, heart attacks, and strokes, things of that nature. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight as far as, let me go back to the arterial sclerosis, then I'm going to be done for tonight, and then I'll open up for questions. But, hardening of the arteries is a real thing, and it's not just a heart disease thing. Alcohol, too much alcohol consumption. Alcohol is free radical damaging. Not only does it damage the vessels with oxidants or free radicals, but it also dehydrates your body. Alcohol will dehydrate your body, causes evaporation of moisture. So, and then you have the free radical damage from the alcohol to your red blood cells and other parts of your body. But the veins and arteries, how they're supposed to work, more so arteries than veins. Your arteries have the ability to balloon, expand, just like blowing air into a balloon. You got the skinny little thing and you start blowing air in it and it balloons up and expands. Well, what does that do? That actually relieves pressure against your mouth. And in this case, it's the heart. Arteries pump through the heart. So if they can't balloon, then they make extra space, then they have no ability to relieve pressure through the heart. And I guess the way I would put it is imagine a hose, and you have a 3/8, which is a real small hose opening, or you have a 1-inch hose opening. Put that to the same pump. The smaller the diameter, the farther and more pressure you're going to put against that pump and that hose. So a 3/8 hose, and you put it up to say a 2-horse pump out of a river, like I have up at my training center. And I've done this. I've taken a 3/8 hose, and that's what I water my garden with because it sprays down the hill at least 12 feet. And I got little holes all the way along that hose. And then you take a 1-inch hose, it's only going to spray about 4 feet down. And it's going to have quite a bit of water, but because there's less pressure, it doesn't shoot out as far. And so when you want to relieve the pressure, you want to use a bigger diameter interior hose or a wall, something that can expand, because that's how your body regulates blood pressure. Is it'll actually arterial dilate or expand the artery, and that takes away all the pressure against the heart, which is very beneficial for heart disease and hypertension. So that, and in order for that artery to expand, it has to be very flexible. It can't have oxidation to it. When it oxidizes, it no longer expands. Then it starts to build up and accumulate plaque on the inside of your artery wall. And just think of it as cement. It doesn't bend anymore. So now you've got severe oxidation on the outside of the artery wall, which prevents expansion. Now you have plaque, oxidized plaque that's building up on the inside, a little thin wall of cement. And that's going to put tremendous pressure to your heart. And because of that tremendous pressure to your heart, you're not going to live nearly as long as you possibly could have. In fact, your lifespan could be shortened by as much as 30 years. You heard me right. Think about that. Your lifespan could be shortened by as much as 30 years less. So you genetically, you should be living until you're in your 80s and 90s, and you're dying in your late 50s and early to mid 60s. Just because of a heart attack or stroke, because of oxidation. So that, I just wanted to explain the very, very quick benefits of that. And all that's in our heart algae product is, one, we have the astaxanthin, the red algae. And again, this is the only one that comes from photoreactor biodomes or an enclosed, controlled environment anywhere on the planet Earth. No other company has this. And the only other ingredients in there are the digestive enzymes to break down the algae to get a lot of the other beneficial properties and nutritional ingredients that are within our algae source. Now, I'm going to make one more comment, and then I'm going to go to open calls, Roderick. One thing that most people don't realize about our heart algae, everybody talks about the omega-3, 6, 9 nutrients and stuff. Our heart algae is loaded, way more so than any other product, gram for gram, ounce for ounce, capsule for capsule, loaded with omega nutrients. And we never talk about that. Most people didn't even know that. Now, is it more than an actual gel cap of nothing but omega-3, 6, and 9s? No, because ours is powder, theirs is liquid, and that's all they have. But we have a very high concentration in here that I never ever talk about. So if you're looking for a really good source of omega-3, 6, 9 nutrients, essential fatty acids, that's another reason to take our astaxanthin product. It has very high amounts of those in there. And like I say, this is 100%, nearly 100% nutritional value. There's very, very little any kind of fiber or anything in our product. Less than 4% is actually fiber. Over 96% is active beneficial ingredients from a red algae source. So just wanted to kind of make that distinction and help people understand our product a little bit more. So now, Roderick, go ahead and open it up and see if anybody's got any questions or comments.
Yes, thank you, Ron. That was great. Anyone, go ahead and come off mute and ask your questions for Ron.
And if you want to come off of mute, push *6, and that'll bring you live interactive into the call for any questions or comments.
Yes. What would be, when the bottle says the recommended dosage would be 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, can you take too much heart algae in one day? Like these double doses, can you do more than that?
You can do more than that, but I'll be honest with you, Irma, you really don't need to.
Okay.
Why would you not
That's what I was wondering.
Because here's what I just got done saying. This is the most potent milligram for milligram by a factor of 5 times more than any other company's product anywhere in the world that has an algae or an astaxanthin source. Nobody even comes close. So the problem is, if you start taking more than 4 or 5 capsules in a single day, think of the antioxidant value that you're putting into your body. Now, always remember, when an antioxidant gives off an electron, it becomes a free radical or an unevenly paired molecule itself. And when you have this much antioxidant value, what you don't want to do is, this was researched by Linus Pauling, by the way, back in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. He actually showed that you could actually take too much antioxidants and create free radical damage with too many antioxidants. So for that, and you don't ever want to do more than 6 a day of hard algae. You don't want to go there, because then you're getting into that amount where it's too much and you're actually having a negative effect rather than a positive effect. And again, our capsules are 200 milligrams of astaxanthin red algae. And if you multiply that by 6 and then you start converting those antioxidant values over, you're going to find it's about 34 to 35,000 equivalent antioxidant values as pure ascorbic acid, which again is pure vitamin C. And that's what Linus Pauling was working with. So I always tell everybody, if you've got any kind of a heart disease or anything like that, got any plaque buildup, you got any hypertension, high blood pressure issues, I would say double up. You're going to take 4 a day rather than the 2 a day. And you could take up to 6, but don't ever take more than 6. There's no reason for it. 4 is going to give you a really, really high antioxidant prevention value with 4 of these capsules a day. So if you have heart disease, if you have a history of heart attack, strokes in your genetics, arterial sclerosis, the hardening of the arteries, if you're a smoker, if you're a drinker, definitely take the hard algae, because alcohol and smoke, that actually has free radicals. In fact, nothing is more oxidative damage than cigarette smoke to the human body. Cadmium is the most carcinogenic or cancer-causing agent in the world to the human body. And that's the natural hazy blue, kind of grayish blue smoke that lingers in the air. That's cadmium from cigarette smoke. So again, factor in what your habits are. So if you're a smoker or a drinker, then you probably would want to take 6 a day. Not to sit there and let you continue taking 6 or smoking and drinking without consequence, but it's going to give you your absolute best neutralizing capability, so you don't have the negative effects of those kind of habits. That makes sense to everybody.
What about amphibian heart?
A what?
Amphibian heart. It's not really a heart disease, but it's, yeah.
Right. Yeah, AFib, which is an irregular heartbeat, and that can actually create problems. Yeah. Right. Well, AFib, that can be caused by a hormonal imbalance. That can be caused by several other things. That's really not a oxidation condition. I won't call it a disease, but it is a condition. And that's really has not a lot to do with antioxidants. So if you're thinking you're going to take the hard algae and correct an AFib problem, chances are you're not. I would say if you took the vitamins and the enzymes, that has a much higher potential of correcting that kind of a problem rather than an antioxidant.
Okay.
Do you know somebody with AFib?
Yeah, my mother-in-law has that. She has this. I don't know how many years, several years already. She has, and she also has a problem with not breathing. She can't walk very far. Then she's breathing hard. She gets out low, and she feels like she's low in oxygen. Anyway, she gets.
Well, let me just
she can't breathe very good. She rests and she can talk.
Let me just ask you something. Is she on our digestive enzymes and probiotics?
She's on the enzymes and the complete vitamins and the hard algae and the Crawl Life, but she is 89 years old, so I think her age has got a lot to do with it.
Well, it has a lot to do with it, but here's what it has everything to do with: your oxygen levels circulating in your blood. Have you ever bought a little oximeter? You can get these at Walmart. They're the little finger clamp that goes on your index finger. They're about $30. I used to travel with them in the motorhome all the time, and we used to measure people's oxygen here and there that come in, and I do their blood, as you know, I do their blood work and things, and I'd always ask them if they have genetics and heart disease in their families, or I'd see just a huge amount of clumped up blood. And then I'd hook up an oximeter to their finger and give them 3 enzymes, wait a half hour, and then I'll show them what their blood looks like. But I can also, I guess, back that up and substantiate that big difference that everybody sees in the blood work. I can put an oximeter up and you'll be 89, 92, 93. And within a half hour, 40 minutes, that'll jump all the way up to 100%. And that's why I was asking.
Yeah, we use that on her quite a bit. We know we are very familiar with that.
Okay, so what does her blood normally run? What percentage of oxygen?
Well, it kind of depends if she's walking around or she's just been sitting. And has already been as low as in the 70s. Then we tell her to rest a little bit and give her a drink of water. And then it goes up to 90, really in the mid-90s. And then it goes down to the 80s. It does really not, it's not a continuous, they say with their heart like it is. And it's getting weaker, so more like a genetic thing.
Well, it's not a genetic thing. It is, but it isn't. Let me explain why I'm asking this, Irma. Because when I was over in Honolulu, Hawaii, I had a very good friend, Millie Pang, and her best friend, what was her name? I'm just going to say Layla from now, but it started with an L, but it's not Layla. It's kind of like that, though. Hyla. Hyla was her name. Anyway, when I first met Hyla, she was in a wheelchair. She couldn't get up and stand. She couldn't even walk to the bathroom. And the minute she tried to use her hands to get up out of the wheelchair and walk to the bathroom, you'd literally see her oxygen percentage go from about 87 and 90 all the way down to 74, 75. And that's dangerous. You could die at those levels. That's very, very low oxygen content when you get down in the 70s, anything. Should never, ever get that low. In fact, the healthy oxygen level should never be below 95, just so everybody kind of knows that. But the only reason I'm bringing up Hyla is because when I first met her, she had her little tube of oxygen up to her nose and everything. And the minute you pulled that away, you could literally see that oximeter go from about 93, 90, all the way down to the low to mid 80s. I mean, it would drop 10, 15% just by pulling that thing out of her nose, let alone having to get up and use physical activity, which uses a lot of oxygen as well. And that wasn't that much physical activity, maybe 8 steps from that chair to the bathroom in my hotel room. That's how bad it was. But anyway, so I got her on the enzymes. I got her on the aloe because aloe is going to help to heal the vascular vessels, arteries, and veins of your body. And then we had the probiotics and the digestive enzymes and the heart algae. So it literally took me about 8-9 months. But I went back over there the following year. This was after I'd moved back in 2001 to Montana. I went back over there with the microscope and did a follow-up with her and stuff. And I went back over there, and I couldn't find Hyla anywhere. In fact, I couldn't find Millie. So I remember, and Norman, now that I'm thinking about this, do you remember when I was standing in your garage out there in Illinois when I tried to call Hyla? Remember that guy that had the breathing problem and stuff? It was in the audience there. Remember the big guy? And I stood right there in front of a live audience. I said, well, here, let me call up Hawaii. I got a gal that completely got off all of her oxygen and stuff. You remember that story?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, Hyla, after a year, I called and I tried to get a hold of Millie. I couldn't get a hold of her. I tried to call her husband, her boyfriend, Frank. He didn't pick up the phone. And finally, after I called up their daughter, Tammy. I said, Tammy, is everything okay? I've been trying to get a hold of Millie and Hyla, and I can't get either one of them. She goes, man, oh man, you are in big trouble. Here, let me give you the number to Hyla's husband. So I called up her husband, and I said, wow, I hope everything's okay with Hyla. And he said, who is this? And I said, this is Ron Schneider. I was the guy helping with their vitamins He said, man, oh man, you've created a monster. I don't know whether to kill you or thank you. And I'm like, what happened? He says, they're both over in Las Vegas spending all my money. She's not in her wheelchair anymore. She's running around like crazy. So that was really good to hear, but I guess he didn't. I could understand where he wouldn't like to hear that. But she was off all of her oxygen. She was completely off of it, free of it, didn't have a tank, didn't have nothing. And that's because we were able to completely restore not only her lung tissue, but her ability of her arteries to expand and contract and accommodate a much higher volume of blood flow and oxygen uptake. That's why I brought that whole story up, because this stuff can be reversed. Because as I say, with every time I'm challenged with the whole enzyme conversation, oh, you don't want to take enzymes because then your body stops producing its own. That's simply not true. That's the biggest misconstrued sentence anything could come out of anybody's mouth. And I'll tell you why. Because in order for your body to stop producing enzymes, that means you'd have to be able to change the genetics and stop the cellular reproductive process. You can't change genetics once you're born. That is your programming on how you live your life from birth to death. That will never change. You can't put more in and you can't take anything away. You either have the ability when you're born and put together as a fetus and then born as a baby, or you don't. But you'll never have more than what your parents can give you because through their genetic programming, and you'll never have less. You can't change genetics once you're born. So in order for your body to stop producing digestive enzymes, you'd have to be able to change genetics and shut that whole process off. And I can tell you one thing about the human cell. It doesn't matter where it's at or what it's connected to or what role it plays. The human cell is designed to reproduce itself until you no longer reproduce itself and breathe and you die. You can't change that process. So if that process isn't happening as fast as it used to or as efficiently as it used to, what's happening? Well, you're aging, you're smoking, you're drinking, you're having all kind of pollution and poor dietary habits. There's a lot of things that contribute to that. But you can't change it. Your body will always have the ability to produce digestive enzymes. Just because you're taking some outside source enzymes, does your body produce less? Yes, and that's what we want it to do. We want to conserve those enzymes to expand and lengthen your lifespan. So you have something to feed your body with through the digestive process 20, 30, 40 years down the road. So, yeah, that's just kind of another fact that I always get into these crazy conversations with the medical community about. And then they say, well, that makes sense. But that's not what we were taught. So there's a whole bunch of teaching out there that just doesn't stand up to common sense ridicule or common sense questioning. And that's one thing I do know, that the body cannot change genetics once it's born. And the human cell is not designed to do nothing more than to replicate and reproduce what it used up for you from yesterday. It'll reproduce so you'll have something to use tomorrow. And that whole process occurs throughout an entire lifespan until you no longer breathe. Those are facts. So anyways, anybody else got any questions, comments, anybody? Good call tonight so far.
I'd like to make a comment if nobody else is going to say something right now. Ron, this is Sanj here.
Sure.
Yeah, I basically wanted to just give you an update in regards to my mom. She had a heart attack almost 4 years ago, and we approached you. And, at that time you said, okay, this is what you got to do. And we got her on the heart ALGAE. We got her on the enzymes. We got her on the aloe to really heal the damage that was done when she experienced a heart attack. And they had put a stent in. Actually, she had a 90% clogged artery. And one of the things that was really surprising, because she's a vegan and she doesn't really have, too much fat or meat in her diet, but her cholesterol was through the roof. And we determined it was through her genetic background.
Right.
And and then at that time you had said, okay, well, we got to get the good cholesterol up, and ever since then, it's been 4 years now. So we added in the coconut oils to make sure that it levels out to that 3-to-1 ratio, and it never solidifies. Right, and And you know, from her, she's got, you know, anybody that'll listen, she'll tells them, she's like, you know, she's on 0 drugs. She does take half a pill of her blood pressure medicine still to this day, but other than that, she's not on any medication. I remember her doctor was saying, you know, whoever you're listening to is going to be responsible for your death. It was literally her doctor's words, and I wanted to go on, you know.
Right.
And now, after you know, like 4 years later, she says she has more energy than she remembers having in the last 15, 20 years. So you know, she's and I see it, like, you know, she's
Well,
just
and I guarantee you, when she goes in for her checkup and she gets her oxygen levels made, she gets her blood pressure measured, all those things have significantly improved, and that's why she feels so much better.
there you go, right?
And you'll be
So
able to see it right there on the heart monitor and through your blood test and just through what the normal run-of-the-mill the nurse does.
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
so you know,
yeah.
so I wanted to share her experience and give you the update with her. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, very welcome. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Anybody?
Ron, Joe Bandalos, how are you?
Hey, good, buddy. How are you?
Good. I just have a quick question, and not to get off the topic, but just in reference to Steromax. When we take it in the morning, and I know that it has to be taken on an empty stomach away from everything else, but is it possible to be taking it with, let's say, the vitamins? You know, everything is yours. You have vitamins and...
No. You do not take it with any kind of a nutrient. You take it with water. That's all I want to see. No juices,
that's all we do,
no
but I didn't know if we can mix it with anything else, and we haven't been. So.
No. You don't ever want to mix it with anything. Because do you understand why you don't do that, Joe?
No, I didn't understand the
Okay,
reason.
well, let me explain it. So we're getting a little bit off topic, but it is really important that people understand this. Steromax is our sprout product, and it's your immune system builder. It'll do amazing things to the human immune system. And your immune system is what determines whether you're sick and diseased or whether you're living a great disease-free life. Your immune system is the big determining factor of that part of your lifespan. The reason you can't take Steromax with any kind of nutrients, because any other kind of nutrients are going to start taking space in the villi where your nutrients are absorbed from the GI tract after they've been digested into the bloodstream through villi shoots. They're literally absorbed upward through shoots in the bloodstream. And those shoots, those sterols, are macromolecules. They're huge nutritional fat-based substances. They're some of the largest molecules you'll ever absorb into your bloodstream as a nutrient. And so those villi shoots aren't big enough to accommodate any other nutrients beside the Steromax. And that's why I always say take them first thing in the morning, 1 hour before a morning meal, because there's no other time that's going to have a much longer length of time between the last time you consumed your meal or vitamins than in the morning when you first wake up after 6 to 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
No other time in the day are you going to have 6 to 8 hours in between a meal. You're lucky to have 4 to 5, and then you got breakfast. You're eating it at noon. You're eating it at 6. So you don't even have 5, 6 hours in between a meal. And so there's constantly absorbing nutrients, and those villi shoots constantly have nutrients in them. The only time that they have a fairly opportune time to be the very emptiest, if you will, is first thing in the morning after a nice long night's sleep. And that's why you can't take them with nutrients, because then you start competing with nutrients from sterols. And anything that's going to be absorbed in a nutrient is going to block the absorption of sterols. Just that simple. So don't make them compete with other nutrients any more than you have to. And if you've got very slow, poor digestion, you're going to already have nutrients left over from your last night meal, because typically people that are late night eaters, they're pretty heavy as far as weight, and they don't digest very well. It could take up to 24, 36 hours just to digest a simple meal through them. So it's going to take longer for them. And that's why we say from the 6 to 9 months. You've always heard me say, well, that real big, huge immune system cell, that enlargement of 3, 4, 5, 6 times bigger cell, increase of overall efficiency up to 750, that's never going to be achieved until between 6 and 9 months. And that's the variable. It's going to take an extra 2-3 months longer for people to absorb those nutrients that have a very slow, poor digestive process, and because you're constantly competing with nutrients to be absorbed with the sterols. Does that make sense to you?
Totally. And I just never understood that. But what you just explained, now I understand it.
Okay. And everybody else, if you take Steromax, that applies to everybody, not just Joe. That's why you have to take it 1 hour before a morning meal with any kind of nutrients, any kind of a protein shake. I don't care. I don't want anything that has nutritional value to it. And I really don't even like the fact that people take it with some of their drugs, because again, drugs have to be absorbed usually in order to get to the enzymes that they're going to inhibit. So if you can take it alone, absolutely by itself, an hour before any kind of meal consumption, drug consumption, or anything else, that would be good, because it only takes about an hour to an hour and a half for them to absorb when the villi absorption chutes are empty. They can absorb fairly quickly, but if they have to be there with other foods and stuff, it's like putting a whole bunch of marbles into an exact tube. That tube will only fit the big marble. You start putting a whole bunch of smaller marbles in there and stuff, and it's constantly going to keep it from absorbing the bigger one. So that's why you do that.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. And Joe, while I got you on the phone, I apologize. I was trying to get back with your son. He sent me over some blood tests and stuff, and there was nothing on the blood tests that were that out of range to actually contribute to what his issues were. And I never did get back with him. I actually didn't accidentally erase that text message. So I lost his phone.
What he was looking for, Ron, I actually went back to the doctor, and the doctor told me, if you have anything specific as far as blood requests, like I know you said something with the phenols and everything, and Julian was just waiting. If you want to text him or text me, if you want to just text me the details of what blood you're looking for, the doctor said he'll write it up and we'll get the blood work done immediately.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Looking at his blood tests and stuff, I'm not sure what he was actually looking for. There really wasn't anything that wrong or out of balance with his blood work.
Right. We just don't know why it's his IgEs are at 14,000.
Yeah, and looking at his blood work, I couldn't really explain that to you either, because everything looks pretty normal.
What about his polyphenols and stuff like that you were saying? Is that important? Well, would that have any determination to this or no?
No, not really. No, polyphenols, they're just, again, they're OLs, they're fats, and there's some antioxidant value there and stuff, but no, that really wouldn't.
Because you raised some very good concerns when we was discussing it with him about,
heart issues, they're that high, they really don't. Right, you don't want them that high. They're like triglycerides. You can have triglycerides up to maybe a couple thousand. You start getting up to 5, 10, 20,000, 60,000 triglyceride levels. That's going to pose a problem somewhere. Might not be immediate, but you can't have them that high because it's going to contribute to plaque buildup sooner or later. And it's just like you said, when you start having those IgE numbers up at 14,000 stuff, that's really, really high. And it doesn't mean you're going to have a problem now. Doesn't mean you're probably going to have a problem in a couple of years. But he's young yet, and somewhere down the line, that's going to all of a sudden pop up as a huge problem unless you can identify what's causing him to be so high.
And then I have two questions. One, how do we identify what is creating it? And two, if he goes on the heart algae, because he kept asking me about the heart algae because of the...
Right. Well, there's something going on in the liver that's causing him to be that high, because it's part of a liver panel more so than anything else.
Okay. Would the heart algae or any of any of the products help reduce this?
Again, I think the enzymes and the multivitamin probably be your best, because that multivitamin has every nutrient known to mankind to benefit the cell functioning in the human body.
Okay.
And those would be the two that I could recommend after looking over his blood tests.
All right.
But will it solve the problem? I don't know. Like I said, and looking at everything else, seemed like the blood test is pretty well balanced. There was a couple things he was high on, but nothing that would relate to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do, like I said, I have the microscope here. I'm going to do Kelly's blood this weekend, and I'm going to do his, and then we can discuss it.
Yeah, and if you have any really weird pictures or anything, you can always take a picture with your smartphone and text them to me, and we can go over that.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments, anything? Anybody for the call tonight?
Hey, Ron,
Everybody
this is Susan.
understand?
Can you hear me?
Free radicals and all that good stuff? Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. On the heart algae, that is to clean up the uric acid crystals. So when I do
Well, let me just correct you. It's not to clean it up. There's no cleaning it up. What you can do
Okay.
is you can prevent it, and the enzymes, because it's a food base, it's a byproduct of food. Remember, uric acid purifying, which oxidizes into a uric acid crystal, that is a food-based byproduct. So it's food-based. So the enzymes can actually eat away and dissolve the crystals just as easily as an immune system cell would, like a neutrophil. I've actually seen neutrophil literally surround the side of a crystal just like it does a candida yeast bacteria in the blood, and literally dissolve the crystal right in front of me on the camera. It takes several minutes. In fact, that one took over 4.5 hours, but it was completely gone. It was a big crystal, and it had two neutrophils. The one was spread all the way around the whole right side of it, and another one came along and kind of got the other side of it, and you could just slowly see that big old green crystal disappear in about 4 hours. And you can see where the neutrophils will engulf the candida, the white little balls in the blood. They'll engulf the whole thing and bring it into the nucleus inside the membrane. And you see all the phagocytes surrounding it and stuff, and pretty soon you can see it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And after about 45 minutes, it completely disappears. It's all dissolved enzymatically by your immune system cell. So you, by taking the digestive enzymes, the plant enzymes we have, after you've been on those for 6 months to a year, now you've got active enzymes circulating around in your arteries and veins. And they're not destroyed by the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, because hydrochloric acid can't break down protein. Otherwise, it would digest your stomach tissue to a liquid, and there goes your stomach. And I've been on my enzymes for over 35 years now, just in case anybody wants to know. And I have no less than 4 enzymes every single meal that I eat. My wife puts 2 big old capfuls of supplement every time I eat a meal right here to the right side of my chair, and I drink those, and then I start eating my meals. But I've been doing this for over 35 years. And like I said, when you go over my blood tests and stuff, there's doctors and billings that call me an alien. This guy defies everything we know about medicine. We've never seen anything like this. My HDL cholesterol is 3 times higher than my LDL or my bad cholesterol. Who does that? They can't even get that done and accomplished with drugs and statins. And I do it naturally. But there's reasons why I'm as healthy as I am internally. So I just wanted to kind of make that point. But getting back to where you're at, go ahead with your question now. I just wanted to kind of slow you down and get real specific.
Well, I think you answered.
Yeah, it's not.
I think you answered the question.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, eventually
so I'm
it will
do
break
the plant
it down.
enzymes. Okay.
What's that?
With the plant enzymes, I was wondering when I do the blood analysis again, which I'll be doing in a couple weeks, that the little bit of uric acid I had last time, I should see improvements a little bit, but it's going to be from the enzymes, not from the heart algae.
Let me just say something, Susan. How long have you been on our product?
About 3 months.
Okay, because for the first year, you're going to have your up and down, just like the stock market, up and down. One day you'll have no uric acid. 3 months later, you'll see uric acid all over the place. And yet you haven't changed your diet much. So what's happening as you start to get accumulative active enzymes building up in your blood, it's going to go in and going to start dissolving and breaking loose all this uric acid that's been accumulating in your joints for all those decades you've been alive. You're cleaning house. So don't always expect that it's just beautiful and perfect, especially during the first 6 months to a year of use, because your body will always go through natural detoxification processes and let loose a bunch of toxins from inside the tissues, and it's called a healing crisis cycle. Your body cycles through release of toxicity as long as it has a clean, healthy blood environment to release the toxicity too. And after about a year, though, then you can start seeing nothing but perfect blood time and time and time again. But for the first 6 months, yeah, you can really, boy, you think you've been doing everything right, and then here's all of this crap. Well, what's happening? Well, let's take a look at it. See how it's so deteriorated? Let's look at all the candida. It's no longer white. There's some white, but most of it's black or dark gray. Well, that's dead candida. So just kind of want to forewarn you, you're not going to be perfect by any means. Should you see less of it? Yeah. And if you don't see less of it, the pieces are going to be very, very small compared to big chunks. And that's the benefits you're going to get from the digestive enzymes starting to accumulate and circulate in your blood in an active state.
Okay, that makes sense. Can I ask one question?
Yeah. Oh, you
I
can
am
ask
also
away all you
taking.
want.
I'm also now taking the plant enzyme on an empty stomach at night. So adding that in also will.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, that's going to, what it does, now you think about it, you're not using up that enzyme activity to digest any part of a meal. If you're taking enough enzymes with the meal, the enzyme should have digested that meal. So when you take it on an empty stomach at night, then what you're going to do is you're going to start breaking loose all the toxicity that's held in the tissues and organs. That's going to force your body to start to detoxify and release toxins. It also helps to oxygenate your body to where you get rid of all the inflammation, inhibiting the renewal or the healing of healthy cells during your sleep. So there's the benefits. And if there is anything in the bloodstream that's not fully broken down, that's nutritional, your enzymes in there will finish off breaking it down, digesting it to where the cells either eliminate it or they'll assimilate it and absorb it and use it as a nutrient source. And that's like plaque. There's so much nutritional value in plaque, but the body can't get to it because it's hardened. So when the enzymes get in there after, like I said, 6 months to a year, you're going to be able to start detoxifying and breaking down all the toxins that are oxidized in the body. There's a whole lot of nutrition in all of that plaque that can be actually beneficial to cellular metabolism and functionality. So it doesn't all have to come from a fresh meal source. The body's got a whole lot of poorly digested proteins and amino acids and fats and things like that that have been oxidized, been hardened, so therefore it's not able to be used at a cellular function. So when the enzymes start breaking down all those toxins, there's sometimes, and in fact a lot of times, there's actually nutrition in there that the body can actually use. And if it can't, then it just simply expels it and eliminates it through urination or a bowel movement.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so taking them at night, and this is something you might want to try. Do you have an oximeter?
I do.
Yeah, just go ahead and try that one time at night. Take your enzymes and stay up for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and take your oxygen levels again and see whether it goes up or whether it goes down. If it goes down, then that means that there's things getting digested and getting in the bloodstream that never got digested from your meal or taking enough enzymes from your supper. That's what that tells you.
Okay.
If it's going up, then it means you got a pretty clean body. There's nothing else coming into it. So you really shouldn't have to take those at night. But I always tell everybody, to have a perfect life, I mean, this is what I've come to know as a fact and a huge benefit for myself personally. Me having the microscope and being the fanatic of analyzing my blood for at least 20 out of the 30 some years I've been using that thing. One thing I can tell you that once your body's cleaned out, you're not going to see that dramatic rise in oxygen as you go to sleep. If you do see a rise in oxygen, it tells you need to be more conscious of addressing your meals and the amount of proteins that are in your meals, because that's when you'll see it go up, because it literally digests down and breaks down all those sticky proteins that are in the blood, inhibiting the red blood cells from absorbing oxygen. And that shouldn't be there. Now, if you're doing this a couple hours after you eat and then going to bed early, well, that's not going to change. It's going to take you a few hours to digest that meal. But if you ate like at 5 or 6 o'clock and you didn't go to bed until 10 or 11, that's more than enough time. Your meal should have been assimilated and fully digested before it got in the bloodstream. Does that make sense
Okay,
to
so
you,
you're
or am I
saying
confusing?
on the oxygen, yeah, that was a little bit confusing. So you said if it's high, if the oxygen is high, that I'm not digesting the food? I mean, because don't you want your oxygen level to be close to 100?
If your oxygen levels are high, that means you are digesting the food.
Okay. That makes sense.
If you take enzymes, if you take enzymes and the oxygen goes up higher, well, then that means your proteins weren't fully digested. And what you did by taking the enzymes is clean them up out of the bloodstream and freed up those red blood cells to increase the oxygen. But if they're already high and you can't make them higher after you take the enzymes, then you're completely adequate with the amount of enzymes you're using to digest your meal and your diet. So you don't need to take them at nighttime because it didn't raise up the oxygen levels much more than a point or 2 points. And that's just cleaning up what little bit of protein stickiness or rouleau you have in there.
Okay. That makes sense. Thanks.
And I'll tell you, I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that I've never talked about really with other people. This is a great way for anybody. $30 at any Walmart. You can go in and you don't have to get the most expensive, just get a $25, $30 oximeter. And that's what you can do at night. And that'll tell you how well you're digesting your meals or not during the daytime. If you can take enzymes and it'll raise up that oxygen by 5-10 points at nighttime, then you're not digesting your meat flesh proteins during the meal. You're not taking enough enzymes for the portion you had. And if you take those enzymes at night and it doesn't raise that up, well, then you're doing fine on your enzymes with your meal. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I see another question here. It's from James. He's got 2 questions. Clarifying again for the heart algae. First question, does it or does it not cross the blood-brain barrier?
No. That's why we have the white pine bark in the metabolic complete. The heart algae, astaxanthin, does not cross the blood-brain barrier.
Okay. And does it cross the retinol barrier, he asks?
Yeah, because the retinol barrier does not have the properties of a blood-brain barrier. And I'll tell you why it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. They're too large of substances. They're too large of a molecule. In order to cross the blood-brain barrier, which is basically all you need is amino acids and sugars for brain health and all of the circulatory tissues and everything that are made up of the brain tissue. It doesn't need these big, huge macromolecule antioxidant nutrient substances. And that's the difference between a astaxanthin, which has, like I said, no less than 30 electrons on its molecular ring. It's a very large substance, almost like a sterol. And can it benefit the retinal? Oh, easily, because the vessels in the retina are much, much larger than within the brain barrier. That's not to say your arteries or your veins of the brain. I'm talking about that little liquidy solution. You ever crack somebody's skull up? There's a whole bunch of tan solution, they call it cranial fluid, but I know it has a specific name for it, and I can't think of it right now. But anyway, your eye doesn't have that. And amino acids are very easy to cross into, like the astaxanthin. If you break it down enough, you can get the amino acids out of it too, because again, any source algae is the most protein-dense, nutritional value amino acid source on the planet Earth. No meat source will have the amount of amino acids, gram for gram, ounce for ounce, pound for pound. An algae will always yield a much higher amount of amino acids from a protein source than any animal flesh on the planet. So that's what bodybuilders, athletes, that's what they should know, but most of them don't. But anyway, not getting too far off of our topic. So yeah, the astaxanthin definitely is really good for eye health, by the way. And one of the things that really deteriorate quick is the macular nerve. And Pat Roberts did a medical study on this way back in the 80s. He found that macular degeneration, where the macular nerve starts to degenerate and affect your eyesight, that degeneration is caused by a deficiency of 3 specific amino acids. That's all it is. It's a deficiency of amino acids. Well, why would old people have macular degeneration? What did I say about the digestive process? For every single 8 to 10 years you live your life, or every 10 years you live your life, your body's going to produce 8 to 10% less digestive enzymes. So by the time you're age 50, you're already nutritionally deficient, which means you're amino acid deficient. You can't digest proteins nearly as well as you did at age 15 because of digestive enzyme deficiencies. That's what causes degeneration, whether it's the macular nerve, whether it's brain health, whether it's body, whether it's muscle mass and muscle tissue. That's what causes the body to degenerate and deteriorate, lack of nutrition, because of lack of enzymes caused by the natural aging process of the human body. So, yeah, I'm sure I answered both his questions there. So, yeah.
Yes, I see in the chat that James says, thank you, Ron. It's now clear.
Okay.
And
good, good.
Question about iodine. Is there iodine in heart algae, and does iodine play a role in our?
I am so glad you asked that. Yeah, Norwegian kelp that's in our metabolic complete. Kelp is real high in iodine. And actually that has a higher value of iodine than the hard algae, but absolutely we have iodine. That's part of the red color in hard algae. Now it's the astaxanthin that gives us its pinkish, reddish, or deep red color. But is there iodine in there that's red in color? Absolutely there is. There's a lot of iodine in there, but it's not going to be near as much as like a Norwegian kelp or a liquid iodine, which is just strained from the algae source it's from, and then it's concentrated into a liquid droplet form. But yeah, there's actually, that's what I'm saying. I don't talk about the other benefits of an algae source. I don't want people to get confused, and this is one of those detractors. Yep, there's lots of iodine in the hard algae. So if you have a thyroid condition or a thyroid problem, along with some of the other Norwegian kelp or iodine drops, just start adding in some hard algae, because you're not only going to get additional iodine benefits from a natural food source, but you're also going to get those tremendous antioxidant benefits as well from the astaxanthin. So good question. Whoever asked that, I'm glad they did. But yeah, there's quite a bit of iodine in the hard algae, but not as much that's in Norwegian kelp or some kind of a really good dense kelp source. Kelp has the highest forms of natural iodine, and even the liquid iodines from sea kelp. There's a reason why they put those liquid iodines from sea kelp, because that has the highest amount of iodine in it. That's a natural, really, really high iodine source is sea kelp. And Norwegian dulse, Alaskan dulse, and Norwegian kelp, they're probably the highest source of iodine that I know of. So that's why we use the Norwegian kelp, because it's super, super high in iodine. And that's what we use in the metabolic complete.
Great, thank you. Any last minute questions from anyone?
Last minute comments, questions, anybody? Okay, well, I guess we can go ahead and end the call. That was a good hour long anyway. Boy, an hour just zips by.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Ron, for another great call. I want to thank Irma and Joe and Sanj and Susan and James for your questions. They really add value to the call. And I also want to thank you, Steve, for your contributions in the chat as well. So with that, I look forward to our next topic next week, Wednesday. And with that, have a good evening, everyone. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
And next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about the ALGAE. A lot of people may or may not know that there's actually a book, a 24-page booklet that goes into great detail about the benefits of polysaccharides, what a medium long and an extra long branch chain polysaccharides do for the human body. There's definitely differences and limitations on the length of the polysaccharide. So we're going to go into that next week. And like I said, there is a booklet. I think you guys have it up on the internet for people who want to find out more about the benefits of polysaccharides and aloe.
And Ron, just quick question here.
We'll be talking about next week. Yeah.
I know you were saying that you guys are working on a manual for all the products. How's that coming along?
Correct, I am. It's coming, but it's not going to be out by January or February. We're almost at the end of February, and I've only gotten through about the first 12 pages, and there's about 40 pages in there. So it is coming. I haven't forgot about it.
Thank you.
You bet.
And yes, we do have Alois Max book in our archives on the website. So again, I look forward to that next week.
Okay.
And with that, have a good evening, everyone. This call's a
Have a
wrap.
good night. Okay, bye-bye.